Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about cluster farming. Now, the central government has allowed 5 private firms to undertake cluster farming of specific horticulture crops in about 50,000 acres on a pilot basis, enabling an investment of approximately 750 crore rupees, including government subsidy. Now, this move is aimed at making Indian produce globally competitive and boost farmers' income as well. Desai Agrifoods, FIL Industries, Sahyadri Farms, Meghalaya Basin Management Agency and Prasad Seeds are 5 companies selected for this pilot cluster farming through a bidding process. The central government will give financial assistance up to 100 crore rupees depending on the size of the project under the recently launched Central Scheme Cluster Development Program, that is CDP, which is implemented by the National Horticulture Board with an outlay of 2,200 crore rupees. The timeline for completion and operationalization of these projects will be 4 years. The government aims to develop 55 different clusters identified across the nation, each with its specific crop. Initially, the pilot will be in 12 clusters with 7 focused crops. So today, we'll try and understand, we'll also go deeper into why cluster farming is important. What are the various ways in which these projects will be put into operation? What is the government's policy? What kind of subsidy, what kind of processes are adopted out here, and the private companies which are involved, how will they ensure the benefit across the entire supply chain when we are talking about the agriculture products here, including the farmers and others in the value chain system as well. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with, we have with us in the studio with us Mr. Prem S. Vashisht is joining us, former Director, Agriculture Economics Research Centre. Welcome, Mr. Vashisht. We also have with Dr. K. Yatish Rajawat is joining us. He's the CEO of Centre for Innovation and Public Policy. And there will be several other experts who will be joining us soon. But let's begin with you first, Mr. Vashisht. And let's first start by understanding, why cluster farming? What's so special about it?
Well, this is confined mainly to horticulture produce. The basic problem is that farmers, it's a perishable product, and farmers are not able to sell the entire produce. So, according to government estimates, about 40% of the total produce doesn't go to the market. Now, if I reduce, say, 5% for self-consumption, etc., approximately, it's 35%, say, I put a conservative figure. Now, this 35% benefit of produce, it doesn't go to the farmers. So, that's one fundamental thing. So, one question basically arises, can you take a major part of this produce which doesn't get marketed? And if you convert into money, that part, is a direct benefit to the farmer. Okay, then other components are that in the total produce, farmer share is 30 to 35%, and 15-20% you remove the logistic cost, marketing, etc., etc. So rough estimates 45 to 40% is the middleman.
Okay.
And if I take a very rough estimate that you reduce, say, through efficiency, developing good infrastructure, say 5 out of 100, say 5 points gain by reducing cost, logistic cost, etc., minimum. I'm taking a very conservative estimate. By efficient marketing, and the details will follow. It is why this whole program has come up. You reduce even, say, the middleman's margin, say, by 50%, and the unsold product about 35%. So my rough calculation, very conservative, not a very high efficiency level, would be minimum 50% increase in farmers' income.
Okay.
And that is the critical point. How do you do that? So farmers alone are not in a position to do that. You need an organization. You need an organization to bring farmers together through FPOs and other
institutionalization of farmers.
Institutionalize. That's what they're calling, the government committee is calling as institutionalization. So you need to put them together in the form of an institution, whether FPO or etc. And you need an instrument, you need a catalyst rather. I would say, whether these companies which have been named would be working as a catalyst. So, to bring farmers together, to form FPOs, bring in technology, pre-harvest, then you would have, post-harvest technology and marketing and branding, etc.
Okay.
So, if you take 3 major components, in each of these major components, these companies are supposed to play a very significant role. And as I said, my rough estimate would be, even if you go by not a very high efficiency level, because initially you can't achieve that. There are many hiccups, lots of problems.
Okay.
I would say that if we are able to achieve some target in a moderate way, you can hope to have at least 50% increase in farmers.
50% increase in farmers' income.
The roughest.
Rough estimate.
Yeah.
Yatish, do you agree with what Mr. Vashisht is pointing out in terms of the economics of this all? We'll go deeper into how it will happen, but let's first understand why. Economics of it all. Does it make sense? Is it going to be as useful as it seems on the paper?
So the basic concept of cluster farming or developing any cluster, even an industrial cluster, is the fact that you have multiple small producers and you want to create facilities at aggregate level. So, for instance, if we were to build a cluster around tiles, okay, Gujarat has a very successful model in Morbi where they have developed a cluster around tiles. So, there are 50-60 units of tile manufacture in the same location. The soil is conducive to making tiles, and hence all the incentives like skill training, marketing, export, logistics has been built in that cluster. I think a similar approach is being adopted by the National Horticulture Board, because primarily all these organizations, whether you take Sahyadri Farms, and Sahyadri Farms is possibly the most well known among all these 5 organizations, they have been cultivating grapes in Nasik area for now close to 20-25 years. So, they have the capacity and the capability to do one crop, monocrop, in a single geographical area. And now the state has recognized that this organization has the wherewithal to expand, but to expand, unlike a corporate which can go to either equity markets and raise fund or borrow from the banks, an FPO, it is very difficult to expand operations because there is no equity that you can dilute to raise money. It is slightly difficult for even a bank to lend to an FPO, though there are means and mechanism for doing it. But the amount that the government in this particular scheme has allocated, anywhere between 25 crores to 100 crores, the objective is, I think, very interesting. The objective is that these, and all of them are FPOs, by the way. Sahyadri Farm is an FPO, FTIL is an FPO, the seeds company is an FPO. And the objective is that in that crop, whether it is grapes, bananas or mangoes, they will expand the capacity, and as Dr. Vish is pointing out, they will expand the pre-harvesting, which is basically getting the farmer the right seed so that standardization of the crop can happen. They will help him in post-harvesting, which is most crucial for horticultural produce because it is perishable, and that is where capacity is needed. You cannot have a small storage plant. You cannot have a small processing plant. If you have to have a processing plant, it has to justify an economic size.
Okay.
And that economic size can only be reached if you have enough produce and you have enough capital. So, what the government basically here is doing is saying that we will give you this 25 crores, you create the capacity of produce and you create the capacity for processing.
Processing as well.
So, therefore, down the line, the income of the farmer will go up and lesser wastage will happen. So, this is for the first time that the government is possibly trusting the FPOs with such a large,
at a large scale,
such a large thing, and they have. I'm sure that this scheme will be supposed to expand to other organizations. The interesting thing is that it has been done through a bidding process. So that means, the government invited bids saying that we are willing to give you X amount of money if you are willing to do these 4 activities reach out to, you know, whatever 55,000
in a time-bound manner as well.
In a time-bound, in a period of 4 years. So it's an interesting thing. It's very similar to the government saying to a telecom company that we will auction the spectrum rights, bid for it, and expand telecom services. So here they're saying expand processing capacity, expand pre-production capacity, and with the objective of increasing farmers' income and making these FPOs possibly more sustainable and more successful.
Okay.
Because if they become big, if the size become big, then they can compete against, see who is the largest mango processing company in the country?
Indeed, indeed.
Is Jain Engineering. Jain Engineering is Maharashtra based, Jain Irrigation. Jain Irrigation is the largest processor of mangoes in the country. So if a FPO reaches the same size, then the chances of that profit being shared equally by the farmers is much higher.
Okay. Okay. And there are options also available for the farmers as well, both for the farmers and the market forces also. Now, Mr. Vashisht, you know, when we are looking at this aspect, and you were earlier explaining about how, conservatively speaking, this adds another 50% push to the farmer's income. But let's also look at the overall value chain, you know, the entire system when we're talking about. And as, you know, Yatish was pointing out, focus on processing part, then gives a push and impetus to the exports as well. So it's not just about farmers. There are other stakeholders in the value chain system as well. They do also get to benefit.
Exactly. See, there are 2 things I just want to clarify in the beginning. Let there be no extra, you know, emphasis on processing. That leads to a lot of misunderstanding of the entire subject.
Okay.
Fundamental thing in this is that you are focusing a sort of specialization, what you call international trade. Now, if you have a comparative cost advantage, then you can compete in the international market and also as well as the domestic market, because domestic market is also fragmented. There is no one market for something. Say mango, there is no one market for mango. So, basic thing is have a specialization, raise efficiency with proper technology, etc., involvement of farmers, bring down cost of production or increase productivity, and then move on. So that's the first step. Now, what happens that suppose you increase production by 20% of any given product. Now, what do you do with it? That's the question. Now, here a lot of people misunderstand that as if a very major part is to be processed because it is a perishable good. That's not the case.
That's not the case.
The real problem in India is, can you connect the farmer with the consumer? Because this is where the consumer is
that deals with the most important part, that is the wastage.
Wastage. And the middleman.
And the middleman, of course. Yes.
So the real challenge for FPOs is, how do you, as an aggregator and on behalf of, say, hundreds and thousands of farmers, you act, and can you create institutions and mechanism to take that produce to the consumer? So first thing is the fresh produce, because most of us, you know, start thinking you need a big storage, you need cold storage, and do one thing. That comes much later. Say if the major part of perishable good can be sold in the domestic market at a reasonable price, and distance is very critical. Say, you know, the apples coming from Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal, you take all the way to, you know, central India and all over. It's a huge cost and a huge transportation thing. So first thing is this. So I would divide the whole strategy in 2 parts. One, that you take it to the consumer, and there you need the value chain.
Okay.
Because then you have a pre-production, sorting out, cooling chambers, then reefer trucks, and then your marketing channels. Okay, so this is the critical part.
Okay, that's very important way of looking at it. You know, trying to understand how the processes will work and what is most important first. What are the first challenge which we have to deal with, as you're pointing out, connecting farmers with consumers is the first and the foremost challenge, the biggest challenge here as well. Something which, Yatish was also pointing out and would agree that this is what has to be overcome immediately. We are in fact joined in now by three more panelists. Let me first introduce them here. Mr. Alok Sinha has joined us. He is the former Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. Dr. Pranjib Kumar Chakraborty is also with us. He is former ADG with the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, that is ICAR, and Dr. S.K. Malhotra, Director Knowledge Management with the Ministry of Agriculture, is also with us. Welcome all of you gentlemen to our show. We were having a nice discussion with Yatish and Mr. Vashisht here on various aspects of cluster farming or the CDP, the program which is in operation now. Mr. Sinha, you've been with the Ministry of Agriculture. If you could throw some light on the centrally sponsored CDP and the entire concept of cluster farming. How does it work?
In cluster farming, the main advantage is that the same kind of crop would be grown, cultivated, looked after, and nurtured by many farmers. It could cover up to 100 or 200 acres. So therefore, the economy of scale goes up. When the scale goes up, then the input costs, they become much cheaper, and the output costs, in the sense that the farmers who will now be selling their harvest in the market, they can do it in a collective way and get the best price for themselves. So cluster farming is in some ways equivalent to collectivization, which the communists used to do in Russia, except that it is not totalitarian, it is completely democratic, it is completely cooperative, and to that extent, suppose 20 farmers get together and they all have each on an average 5 acres of land. So on, it is a 100-acre estate, which then negotiates well to get the inputs reduced and negotiates well to get a higher price for the produce. Okay. The government is going to give both subsidies and in a way promote their marketing. So if this cluster farming takes off in India, in as many places as possible, it can only mean good news for Indian agriculture.
Okay. Dr. Malhotra seemingly is back with us. Dr. Malhotra, I was, trying to bring you in the discussion on this aspect of cluster farming. If, you could explain it to us, how is the Ministry of Agriculture moving ahead with it? I understand National Horticulture Board is the implementing agency as far as CDP is concerned. How will this scheme work?
Yeah, in fact, this program, it's a cluster development program where it was envisioned that, yes, we need to now implement production of high-value crops in a cluster mode, because cluster mode has proved itself very successful in various countries. Even in our own country, there are several examples of some crops where success has been achieved. Either you take example of grapes, or you take example of banana, or take example of mango. So, but similar kind of other clusters are required to be now made. So, Ministry of Agriculture decided and started discussions from the November 2021 onwards. And I was the party of that program. And then this program was sketched and identified. 55 total clusters were identified as a whole in the country, because we enjoy all kind of climate conditions, temperate, tropical, subtropical, and we have a wide range of crops which are grown in our country, particularly horticulture, if I speak about. So considering this, it was taken a decision that at the very first instance, we need to have 12 clusters, and here we need to have 7 crops available with us. So now Government of India has accepted that plan, and it has been declared, and our pilot plan will start soon for this purpose. And in the first instance, these 5 companies have been identified, and these companies, they will start doing this cluster farming approach. They will follow for growing these crops, because we need to bring a kind of global competitiveness. So global competitiveness will come through good agriculture practices, through certification of the good practices, and then we need to use the inputs which are required for production of a particular, I should say, commodity of particular quality. So quality approach will be there, and then export orientation, standards, those all things will be pursued through this cluster approach. And here these companies, some of the companies, they have already proved it. Just you take example of Sahyadri. Sahyadri is well known for grape production, and it is one of the organization which is already exporting and doing productions. So they will identify new clusters, and because our farmers largely they are smallholders, so smallholder farmers, they are required to be brought together at one platform where they can take benefit of the knowledge and further application of that knowledge, so that the desired quality of the produce could be produced, and a kind of culture will come where quality consciousness will be there, and the risk of those farmers will be covered, because they will get a kind of support through this cluster approach, where there will be a, I should say, platform where will be a win-win-win-win like situation will be there, because they will get an assured platform for selling their produce at the desired prices. I should say they will never be at loss, because there are several instances where farmers, they have to sell their produce at throwaway prices. But now this will not happen, and this cluster approach will definitely prove useful. And farmers, they will take benefit, and definitely it will benefit largely to our small and marginal farmers who have small holdings, but they want to convert them into a profitable venture.
Increase the farmers' income as well, something which other panelists are also pointing out. Dr. Malhotra, hold your thoughts there. Let me also bring in, Dr. Chakraborty. Dr. Chakraborty, you've been listening patiently to all the panelists. In your views, when we're talking about the concept of cluster farming, that's one aspect, and the entire central scheme under which, this concept is now being sought to be implemented, the aims and objectives there as well. How do you analyze this entire concept in terms of its aims, in terms of the way it is sought to be implemented?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be a part of your meeting and this discussion. In fact, cluster farming is the only way, and unless public-private partnership is done, because we have a huge potential in the country. As per, if we see, if we compare the potential of India compared to China, India has better 30% arable land and 30% of rainfall more than that in China. But what is different in India? That we have almost 100% less use of pesticides and 50% less use of this kind of fertilizers. So these things, and then the modern implements and drones which have come, and many of those things are possible for application in the Government of India has recently developed guidelines for use of drones in because protection from plant and production, they cannot be separated. Protection of plant from pest, let me tell you, about 250,000 crores of losses are happening in India because of the pest. And we have a highest production at this cost of production, at this rate of production, which is horticultural crops nearly 342 million tons and food grains 323 million tons. So there has been what happening is 60 to 66 million tons of food can be protected, or food protected is food gained, or crop protected is crop gained. So we have to take up these plant protection measures. This is seldom it is highlighted in the country. So that is very less is being done in the country. The pesticide uses are dismal. Sometimes it is this is not equal in every respect, but the overall use of pesticide in the country is lowest in the world. It is 173rd out of many different 180 countries.
Okay.
And it is 340 grams per hectare, if we say, it will be calculated. So how to go and save, if we can save the 60 to 66 million tons of fruits and food which are lost to perils of pest, then we can feed another 25,000 crore people even without having any gain in production and productivity. So this is the height by which we can achieve the
Indeed, Dr. Chakraborty, those numbers which you're quoting do tell a different story altogether in terms of what can be achieved if we put our best foot forward, we plan it accordingly, and take into consideration all those factors which you and the other panelists are pointing out. We'll take a short break here, but on the other side, we will also try and understand the challenges which are there in implementing schemes like these, or rather benefiting from the opportunities which are already there in the field, just waiting for us to plan it out properly and put them in an operational mode. Stay tuned. Welcome back. So today in Perspective, we're talking about cluster farming, how it will be implemented, why it is required, and of course, in the next few minutes, we'll try and understand the challenges which lie therein as well. Mr. Vasishtha, I'd like to begin with you. We spoke about various reasons why cluster farming is necessary. What kind of benefits it brings to us. You were talking about food wastage. You were talking about how other processes involved will increase the farmers' earning as well. Dr. Chakraborty was pointing out the other aspect of it, the use of pesticides or the less use of pesticides or the excess use, how that also results into a lot of food wastage or crop wastage as well. Various aspects combined. Now, the question is that when a concept like this is brought into the fold and is sought to be implemented, what are the key challenges which need to be tackled at? Because this perhaps might be a new thing for the farmers, which are the basis of this entire, process.
Yes. You see, the program clearly visualizes 3 stages. And for any implementing agency, there are 3 stage challenges. One is the pre-production and production, the post-harvest management, and the third is the logistics, marketing, branding, etc. Now, it could be done by one agency. It could be done by subsidiaries of that agency. It depends on the organization that you do it. So, I would say the challenges exist in all the 3 stages.
Okay.
So, right in the beginning, as Dr. Chakraborty was pointing out, fertilizer, pesticide, the basic thing is acquisition of inputs at a cheaper cost because you are aggregating
in the pre-production stage.
Pre-production. Then transfer of knowledge to the farmer, but ultimately it is the farmer who is going to do it. So, the transfer of knowledge to the farmer, that comes the real production challenge.
To ensure the quality of the produce.
Yeah, quality of produce. So, that is the production and pre-production production stage. So, there are very big challenges, and all we know that the extension service in this country suffered a lot because gone are the days of pre-green revolution or green revolution era where the transfer of technology, it was taken with a great zeal, and there are numerous studies which show that the extension service is really not that good. And whether you depend on the government machinery or the private machinery, it has to be done with public-private partnership.
Okay.
Now, you have KVKs, Krishi Vigyan Kendras in different regions, but they do limited work. They are not supposed to do, transfer of knowledge on a large scale. Their main expertise is demonstration, that you demonstrate this is how it can be done, this is the benefit on a limited number scale. So, the first biggest challenge apart from procurement of inputs is the transfer of knowledge to the farmer, right kind of thing, and at a larger scale.
Okay.
So, this is the first big challenge.
Okay. Okay. We'll come to the other challenges, other aspects as well. Yes. Yatish also, I believe, would like to add to it. But let me first bring in Dr. Malhotra and, Mr. Sharma out there to try and get their viewpoint on this big challenge. Dr. Malhotra, as Mr. Vasishtha is referring to it, transfer of knowledge to the farmers, very crucial, very important, and perhaps the first big challenge. How do we plan to tackle this?
Yes, extension services are very important because extending the knowledge on that particular area will be very important. Because here the beauty of this cluster approach is that we are going to deal with the single crop in a particular geographical area where there is a strength for growing that particular crop. But we need to infuse the package of practices, complete package of practices, because here clustering is the pillar of this agribusiness approach which we are going to follow, where input delivery system will be in a very strong form. And because here farmers will get a kind of healthy, clean planting material which will ensure for high production and quality. So this will be one part. Another thing is the challenge which we can face, where our extension services also enhance their knowledge on achieving those international standards, because we need to produce the crop, and agriculture produce should be of that international standard. How we can reach to those standards, and a complete certification process that is required to be followed. Earlier we were following this global gap, but now India is aiming in the gap for following the good agriculture practices. Certification right from sowing till harvesting, a certification process is required to be followed, and many other companies, they are already doing it.
Okay.
So this knowledge upgradation at the extension services counters, I think that's very important. And another point which I would like to mention here, that private sector infrastructure build up will take place with the support of this cluster approach. And here the infrastructure will be available, as it has been mentioned, that here logistics, as well as then we speak about the marketing, and then again one more important thing will be there, that cluster branding will happen. That will be the beauty of this cluster approach. That cluster branding will definitely give benefit to the clusters, and this way production will definitely get a kind of boost. And here we will get an assured market will be there, because always farmer, they face a risk that where he will sell his produce and what kind of price he will get. So a kind of assurance will be through this cluster approach will be there. And here input procurement will also be on the economy of scale. It will be in the benefit of the farmer, where the cost of production will also come down and quality will also upgrade. So this way he will get a benefit of knowledge, knowledge sharing through this platform. And then following these approaches will definitely help in enhancing the yield, quality, as well as, I should say, assured market. These
assured market as well.
Will be covered into it.
What, Dr. Malhotra, what you're saying is that as far as the issue of knowledge sharing is concerned, that is taken care of in terms of the challenges. There are various mechanisms. Of course, we will have to face those challenges during the implementation part. Reassurance is also there. But Yatish, in addition to these, what more can you think of in terms of the aspects which need to be very clearly looked at, planned out meticulously, so that while implementing it, there are no, surprises?
So, for any scheme to be successful, the objectives have to be clear. It has to be clear that what do you want to achieve? Do you want to achieve more number of farmers to be covered, or do you want to make more farmers profitable? So what is that one figure that you're going to measure? Are you going to measure 5,000 acres of farms covered through this scheme, or are you going to measure that the organization, whether it is FIL, Sahyadri Farms, or Meghalaya Marketing Seeds, this thing, how much have they increased the production? So, like in the production link incentive scheme, we focused that if they increase production by X, they get Y incentive. Similar incentive scheme has to be followed for this. We should not follow the old models of saying that the target is 5,000 farmers or 5,000 acres of land, because that does not result in either increase in income or increase in productivity, or in creating that infrastructure that will finally increase the value addition on every apple that is produced. Point number one. Second, I think one thing, Vishal, which is very interesting about this scheme is the areas, geographical areas that has been selected. For instance, Shopian in Kashmir has been selected. Now, if you would remember, Shopian is an area that has been a large producer of apples, but has a huge logistic problem in terms of bringing those apples to the North India, Delhi or UP. The reason being, Shopian has always had uncertainty. There has been a lot of incidents around Shopian, so it's very difficult to find laborers there. Pickers are difficult to find. Now, the company that has been chosen to build this capacity in Shopian is a North Delhi-based organization, which has been in logistics for the last 20-odd years. So, second company, which is in turmeric, which is going to create a capacity in where? In Jaitia Hills, in Meghalaya. Again, a very secluded area, very difficult to get logistics, even to get logistics from there to Calcutta is difficult. So, I think the wisdom of selection is certainly there. The structure of the incentive should be production linked, profitability linked, and not number of acres or number of farmers linked.
Okay.
That will ensure that this scheme succeeds.
Okay. So, production linked, productivity linked, that is what you're pointing out. Let me bring in Dr. Chakraborty here as well. Dr. Chakraborty, from your point of view, the aspects which need to be looked at, you were earlier pointing out in terms of the pre-production stage, but apart from that, in other stages of the implementation part, what should we be more concerned about or more focused upon?
One of the biggest limitations for reaching the technology to the farmers, as Dr. Malhotra has also pointed out, that is the lack of awareness and lack of knowledge of the farmers and lack of knowledge or spread of the technology to the almost 6 crore people and belonging to about having this much 14 lakh farming families. So those kind of things, this is not spreading, and no government agency is able to reach to every part of the farmer in the country.
Okay.
So technology is there, but it is not spreading. So that is one of the biggest limitations. As per recent report, there is a 30% of source of information for the modern technology for the farmers are the progressive farmers who are there. Progressive farmers, media and television, these are the things. And only 2% of the resources or the source of information goes from KVK combined together with all the government machineries, right from Atma, KVK, SAUs and all these agencies together. So we need to have inclusion of industries here. Definitely industry, we have to leverage the potential of the government in this part by involving private sector into it.
Okay.
And giving that area defined hectare, you said, as you said, in 50,000 hectares, if you are giving to 5 industries, so maybe 10,000 hectares or something can be given to one of the industries.
Okay.
Combined with the public institutions. Let me tell, I am right at the moment, I am in a National Bureau of Agriculturally Important Microbes. So, as I had already said, to reach to the entire 5,050, to cater to the need of 10,000, technology needs to be done, found, and that is already there in one of the ICR institutes, government institutions. And with the help of industries, all the government institutions are not supposed to commercially make those in the large scale. It is a research institute, ICR institutes are for research. So they have developed large number of bioformulations for different bio-NPK, bio-pesticides and so many other things. So it can be spread to the, even these agencies should be also involved along with the private industries to use their resources and leverage their resources in reaching the farmers.
Okay, so that brings in additional value is something which you're pointing out, Dr. Chakraborty. A very interesting point out there, Mr. Vashisht. Would you agree that utilizing centers of excellence like these to to bring in those expertise or use that expertise perhaps at a commercial level, or put it into use into schemes like the CDP which we are talking about right now? That increases the efficiency.
No, it does. But as I mentioned at the beginning, the challenge, real challenge, nobody denies, don't bring in those centers of excellence. The real thing is how centers of excellence are not the instruments to take knowledge to the farmer in bit. They create
extension services will have to be.
See, these centers create knowledge. Okay. But after creation, how do you take it to the farmer? That's the real challenge.
Okay.
And this is where I agree with Professor Chakraborty, because you need collaboration and partnership with private agencies and NGOs.
Disagree on that, Vishal, because I believe that the farmer is not a person who has to be spoon-fed about knowledge. I think the farmer himself is a repository of knowledge, one. Second, I think farmer, like any other entrepreneur, looks at maximizing his profits. And he will seek out knowledge wherever it is, however difficult it is, if it helps in maximizing profits.
Okay.
We have created an institutional structure which is partly defunct because it is outdated. It does not serve the farmers. The best way to serve the farmer is to help him is creating infrastructure that allows his produce pre-harvesting, post-harvesting, processing and branding, and create a structure that allows him to get the maximum price for his produce at the end of it.
Okay.
We should not interfere in, it's like do we tell a telecom company that you need knowledge to put up your towers?
But perhaps it would be unfair to compare a marginal farmer with a telecom company, because the knowledge structure is there. As Mr. Vashisht is pointing out.
Do you tell a mechanic on the road that we will teach you how to repair cars? He learns how to repair cars. So let us not assume the ignorance of the farmer and take it as a given because we are learned people and they have a different kind of knowledge.
Okay.
And we have to accept the fact that he is an entrepreneur. He is a farm entrepreneur.
So you're in favor of profits. You're more in favor of facilitating the farmer, rather than instructing the farmer.
Yes, enabling it and leaving him to maximize his profitability.
Okay, enabling the farmer, not instructing them, or rather facilitating them. Let me bring in Mr. Alok Sinha here as well. Mr. Sinha, which one would you be, more focused upon? Enabling when Mr. Vashisht says that more focus on sharing of knowledge, or rather providing that knowledge resources to the farmers, which is the best way to move forward?
I would wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Vashisht. The farmer has got not only ground knowledge, but also got technical knowledge by virtue of centuries of legacy. What we need to do is to enable the farmer to have the opportunity to know what is going on in the rest of the world.
Okay.
So I think by cluster farming, by the infusion of technical services into a particular cluster, the farmer will be able to absorb it very quickly. I mean, not only the Amul experiment, but even the Green Revolution experiment of the 60s and 70s have shown that the farmer takes to improved seeds, improved chemicals, improved seeds in a very quick manner.
Okay.
So I think all that we need to do is to enable the farmer to have the opportunity to absorb newer knowledge.
Okay.
And he will do the trick. He'll do the magic.
Okay. Okay. So trust the farmer there again, that part there. But let me you go back to one of the earlier point which you were making, Yatish. That is about the parameters on which, you judge a scheme, or rather the success or otherwise of that scheme. And let me bring in Dr. Malhotra here. Dr. Malhotra, as Mr. Yatish was referring to it earlier, what are the parameters which the government has finalized here in terms of cluster farming for these 5 private firms as well? Because this is a pilot project. There will be, as you were saying earlier, there will be 55 such more projects which are envisioned by the government. So how would you judge the success or otherwise of a particular cluster farming project?
Yeah, in fact, the basic point when the journey started for this cluster approach was that how we can give more benefit to our small farmers. and how we can convert those small farms into the profitable ventures. So that was the basic point. And then the strategy was worked out that let us have a cluster approach where high value crops are required to be pushed. And similarly, we need to make the clusters keeping in view the strength available with us. And accordingly, now these 5 companies have been selected on the basis of some parameters. And those parameters are well established that yes, they are capable enough to lead the clusters, where they will identify the suitable clusters and cluster partners, and then they will assess the resources available with them, and then further the set of the technologies, how it is to be infused, and farmers, they will be further provided a kind of training through the capacity building program, so that they can finally use all those inputs at the different stages, where they can help in having a kind of traceability system which will work for the final produce, that from where this has come, and the quality parameter whatsoever has been set, that those are also required to be achieved at the end. So these all are the parameters where value chain, a complete value chain, will be looked after by the experts. And I also feel that each company shall be having his own knowledge extension system, where they will have a capacity building program to train their clusters. So I think this will be the point which will definitely be taken care.
Okay. But once again, you know, to make things a bit more clear, as Yatish was asking very directly, that what is more important when we are trying to, perhaps a few months down the line or a few years down the line, as per the timeline of the scheme, what is more important? More number of farmers, or, the higher the increase in the farmer's income?
Yeah, here, because more number of farmers, because this is a pilot project at the moment, I am saying. So here, 55,000 farmers, they have been at the first instance, have been identified that yes, they will be linked with this. And then 55 clusters will be there. And this way, this approach will be used and pilot. Once the pilot is successful, then it will be extended, because it's at the very first phase. It is for 4 years. They are going to assess it. And then accordingly, it will be further extended to other clusters, because there are several other crops which will be taken care of. And then the beauty of this project is that that all infrastructure build-up will be near those clusters. Suppose if turmeric is grown, then turmeric needs a special kind of processing if we have to convert them into the powder. So that processing plant facility will also be there near that cluster, and the cluster brand that will be promoted. Market will also be supported through that program. So this way, an approach will be followed, where I think this will definitely give a boost, and then this will definitely will come with a profitable. Manner.
So Dr. Malhotra, what you're saying is that it's all about the overall addition in the entire value chain when we are looking at this entire process, including the farmers, the other stakeholders as well, and starting from the pre-production stage to the end stage, the processing part as well, giving a push to the exports also. Thank you so much, Dr. Malhotra, Dr. Chakrabarti, Mr. Sinha as well, Mr. Vashisht and Mr. Yatish Rajawat for sharing your views and insight. I'm sure all these views would be taken on board by those who are implementing the policy, and most importantly, other stakeholders who would be listening in to find out as to what exactly is cluster farming, how the government intends to implement it, what are the key areas, key aims as well, and most importantly, the challenges which lies herein, and how those challenges will have to be tackled in the coming months or years ahead. This being a pilot project, we'll be looking forward to other such projects being taken up and keep you updated on all this information. And come back again tomorrow with a different topic in perspective. Till then, keep watching Sansad. Thank you.